Harold.
Remember us? We never forgot.
I don't even remember me sometimes.
Is that like super meta shit that you're talking about?
Yes.
When you were doing those vocalizations, did that get recorded? Because I feel like the microphones are normally muted when we're doing that. And I just hear like you doing Peter Griffin humming the song.
Oh shit.
Like doing all that goofy stuff. I'm like, I never noticed. Yeah, that. Welcome to the Battle Bros podcast
Well.
with Mac and Alamo. I'm Mac. This is Alamo, aka Ass Hat McGee over here.
If it was
Welcome
recorded,
yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
let's just
Jesus.
say that you guys get a little bit of a show before the show. Eh? Eh?
You think that's funny, Peter?
Yeah, I do.
Hello there, fat man. Anyway.
Story?
Anyway, no, that's going to derail before it ever gets off the ground, so we're going to stop.
Oh, it was derailed from the beginning.
Yeah, no kidding. So it's been a couple of weeks. We had some scheduling issues come up, so we couldn't be on there. Sorry, but we are back for our newest, latest, and greatest episode of the Battle Bros podcast. Again, I am Mac. This is Alamo. We are the Battle Bros. We do a show every so often, not every week, but every so often. And we're two lifelong friends. We met in high school. We both went on to be in the military as part of the post 9/11 GWAT generation. We both joined the Army. Alamo was active duty infantry. I was a soldier with the National Guard here in Florida for about 6 years. So we have some diverging viewpoints and opinions on things, but it doesn't mean we can't talk about them and all that kind of shit. If it's the first time...
Considering our subject, too, I guess it's kind of funny. I started off on a funny note, even though unintentionally, unintentionally, excuse me.
Which is why I also brought up the news that we're going to talk about. The only news we have, which isn't even military related, but it's funny because, yeah. But yeah, so we have a podcast that we do every so often. We talk about events and issues regarding and relating to the military and the first responder communities, firefighters, cops, dispatchers. You guys are all included. You are part of that community. So if you're new to the show, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome
all
back.
Part of the cool kids club.
Pretty much. Which I'm saying proud member of for once in my damn life. So anyway, so we haven't been on in a couple of weeks. Like I said, scheduling stuff, but here we are. We're back to it. We're going to get right into it. So before we talk about our topic this week, if you haven't had the opportunity to or did not know about it, you can go onto our Facebook. We have a Facebook, YouTube, pretty much all Instagram, social media type stuff. You can check all that out. If you go to YouTube, it's actually got links to all of our different social media pages. So you can feel free to check those out. Alamo's going to talk about those at the very end of the show before we sign off for the week. But you can catch all of our previous episodes in various places, anywhere you can find any type of podcast whatsoever. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Rumble, Stitcher, freaking Spotify. That's where I listen to my stuff. So yeah,
Biggest one being Spotify.
biggest one being Spotify. So that being said, 3 weeks ago we did our show. It was episode 108. And we talked about the conversation of expectations. If you want to go back and check that out again, you can watch and or listen depending on the media platform you're on. All of our episodes are on YouTube. You can go back and watch them. Hell, just put them on in the car for a long drive. It's great just to have something on in the background noise to listen to without, but it's not music you've heard, something 1,000 times before. Like, change it up, be different, be original. Anyway, before we get into our topic this week for episode 109, really haven't had a lot of time to go over news stuff. I did see an interesting article a while back that I want to look into a little bit further. It was an op-ed piece on YouTube where a guy said that there's a lot of soldiers that have come out saying that they are being, for lack of a better term, redacted about how much the new weapon system, the XM7 service rifle for the military, is absolute dumpster fire garbage, trash panda type stuff. So
why does that not surprise me?
I know. So I'm going to look into that a little bit further, see what we can find. While we were off on our small pseudo sabbatical, we've got a new pope. So Pope Francis unfortunately passed towards the beginning of the month. We now have a new pope. It is Pope Leo the 14th, which is significant for everyone, not just for the Catholics, but for everyone. It is the first time an American has been elected as the Pope. So he goes by the name Pope Leo the 14th. So his Holy Father is an American, and he's from Chicago, which I consider this a very lost opportunity. We could have had, listen, how awesome could it have been if instead of Pope Leo, we had Pope Dicka? Okay, Pope Dicka the first. He could have been like, touchdown, Catholics. All right, touchdown, Catholics. We're gonna celebrate. We're gonna, hey, Portillos. Hey, this is Pope Dicka. Do you guys deliver to the Vatican? Like, that would be fantastic. Can you put a location for Portillos right outside the city walls of the Vatican? That would be fantastic. It would
and
be.
Don't forget to bring me a jersey for the Bears.
Yeah, the
and
Bears.
Doubles.
The Bulls and the White Sox, because he is a White Sox fan. I mean, and it's going to be dope because it's just going to say Leo on the back with number 14 since he's Leo the 14th. It's like, fuck yeah, dude. Sorry. But again, it could have been awesome. We could have had Pope Dicka. Pope Dicka the first. And I know I'm not, listen, for everybody out there that is of the Catholic faith, please understand this is me making a light attempt at humor, and you'll see why here in a few minutes, because we have a pretty serious topic we're going to discuss. So we like to start off with a little bit of humor just to kind of balance out all the darkness that we're going to eventually dive into. Yeah. So that being said, we didn't really see a whole lot of military stuff, anything worthwhile to bring up right now. Just talking about the Pope, the brand new pontiff. So Pope Leo the 14th, congratulations on ascending the highest throne of the Catholic Church. And we'll see what his reign of influence looks like. So that should be fun. Now, we got that out of the way.
That's right.
So last time we did an episode, it was episode 108. And we talked about the subject of expectations. Again, if you want to find that, you can go back and look on YouTube, Spotify. Actually, probably not Spotify because it's probably not been uploaded yet. To be fair, YouTube's probably going to be your best bet.
Huey.
Well, we're going to work on that. So, all good. So this month being May, this is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So that being said, we wanted to talk about some subjects that were a little bit more kind of close and near and dear to that piece of information. So for this episode, this is episode 109. This is our second to last episode of our 5th season here at the Battle Bros podcast. We are going to be delving into, I'm going to need you guys to just kind of remember to keep happy thoughts, keep a good positive light in your head, because we are going to be delving into the conversation of depression. Okay.
Yar.
And this is something that, listen, it doesn't just apply to military. It doesn't just apply to firefighters or, police officers or first responders and stuff. It applies to everybody. Pretty sure you've had some kind of experience. I would say the majority of people, 95% of people have had some type of experience where they've felt depression. So, but first, before we dive into that any further, let's kind of stop, tread water, and let's look at what the definition is. So, depression that we found is defined as a common and serious mental disorder that negatively affects how people feel, think, act, and perceive the world. It's characterized by a persistent feeling of sadness and a loss of interest or pleasure in activities. While everyone experiences sadness at times, depression is more persistent and severe, lasting for weeks or months and interfering with daily functioning. Okay.
Been there.
And listen, if you're sitting at home going, join the club. It's all good. This is not a club anybody wants to be in, but hey, we've probably all been there at one point. I mean, I'm going to talk about some times that I've been depressed in my my life, and certain times throughout my life and whatnot. Maybe Alamo will too. I don't know, but we're going to talk about some stuff here, and this is going to be one of those discussions where it's going to get a little heavy. We're going to try to talk about it, not get too far into this, nexus and void of just evil and darkness and all this negativity. But
Yeah.
I'm shaking my table here. My camera's just doing all this crazy stuff. But we're going to talk about it just so that, listen, if we can understand and identify what it looks like, hey, that's going to be good knowledge to have, because we can recognize it and go, okay, I feel like I'm getting, I'm looking into this deep end of the pool here, and I got a foot hanging over the edge. Before I jump in, let me just kind of step back and be like, hey, let me take a look at this, okay? Because once you get in there, it gets pretty dark, it's pretty heavy. So now back to what I was reading. So talked about the definition. Now, some of the symptoms of depression are persistent sadness, loss of interest in activities, changes in appetite or sleep, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and feelings of worthlessness or guilt.
Check.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, it's easier if I say how many boxes I don't check or haven't checked before.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't exactly a bingo card I'm trying to fill up with everything. It's like, shit.
And especially because we don't
loss
want
of interest.
We don't want to fill in those. We don't want to fill in those blanks.
No, we really don't.
But
now,
if the shoe fits,
then wear it or chuckle it or turn into a chocolate and spiral that shit across the room. But like we were talking about, there's been plenty of times that I would think somebody, especially when they're coming up into puberty or pre-puberty or something like that. It's probably especially nowadays, it's like mental health is such a big common thing in today's society. It's at the forefront of conversations and health and wellness in our world today. It's something that a lot of people talk about. And I had a pretty interesting conversation with my daughter a while back, and she just turned 11 back in April, and she's still she's going to be graduating 5th grade in a couple of weeks. I'm super proud of her. I mean, she has done nothing but just excel at damn near everything she does. Putting dirty laundry in a hamper, she does not excel with that. But that's any kid that age, right? Not trying to call her out. Love you, sweetie. But yeah, it's something that everybody kind of goes through and whatnot. But
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, I kind of skipped ahead there. But what I was saying though, she's going to be going into middle school, and I just remember middle school being awful. Sixth, seventh, and eighth grade just
Yeah.
sucked.
Yeah.
I I had good
Yeah.
teachers. I had
It
pretty good
sucked for
teachers,
everybody.
but just it was shit because everybody's figuring out who they are, what they're trying to be, what kind of morals and values they have. And most people are just fucking turds. I mean, the innocence of elementary school is just blown out into the black hole of space, and you're just like, oh, people
Yeah.
really do suck.
Dude, let me tell you how much middle school sucks nowadays, dude. Like
Jaden's
in
in middle
the
school, right? Your
yeah,
oldest? He's in
and
sixth?
yeah, and in the last couple of weeks, like there's just been uh like fights breaking out like in the last week by itself. Like there's been a stabbing getting off of a bus for like
Wait, at
kids,
your son's school?
not at Jaden's, but at
Oh,
well actually probably shouldn't say it on air, but th-
a
there is a
school local to
school
you?
locally that you know had an incident where a kid got stabbed, and then another one where like fights broke out, and the kids ended up in the hospital, and it's like, good god, why why is
So
this happening?
can I double tap on that real quick?
Yeah.
Because this just it was so funny. Funny meaning ironic, not funny at all, because this is pretty serious stuff.
No, I get it.
I was talking to my coworkers today, and we were discussing some stuff, a couple of different things, and we ended up talking about just some of the craziness in the world. Like there was some type of school shooting, and it was revealed that the kid that perpetrated the act, his mother went and procured and purchased ammunition knowing that he was going to do this. And it's just like, the fuck? But oh,
Wow.
so we were talking about, because I work with kids and that are like pre-kindergarten and stuff. So it's the predominant, age that I've worked with for the majority of my time as a therapist. But we were talking about how like just all the stuff going on nowadays. Like you have like active shooter drills. Like we used to have like what? Fire drill,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much it. We had maybe a tornado drill. We had to get under our desk and kiss our little sorry, sweet little childlike asses goodbye. Because like,
Yeah.
what the hell is the desk going to do?
it
Just
wasn't
turned me into
it,
a piece of debris.
it wasn't until Columbine that I think things got kind of
What's that?
it wasn't until Columbine that I think that things
Yeah.
kind of got a little stupid. And back in the day, it used to be taboo to kind of mention it, but like now, it's like it's kind of like the not the catalyst. What word am I thinking of?
Would it perhaps be the event horizon?
yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about that movie right before we went on air about how it's a scary fucking movie, but it's also really good too. And I was reading through like some of the notes on it and stuff on Wikipedia, and I was just like, oh shit, I forgot about that. Like, God. So yeah, that's the only reason I
Yeah.
brought that up and was messing with my dude here. But
Yeah.
yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were talking about like just how things are just different nowadays. Like the cool, like the kids' tennis shoes that have like the little lights on the bottom of it.
Yeah.
How they have an off switch now.
They didn't have
So
that back then.
no,
They didn't have that.
you have an off switch where you can turn that shit off and all that stuff. And it's just like, and I brought up the fact too, is like you can buy backpacks that have a ballistic Kevlar panel in the back of it, and if you need to, you can just take it, sling it over your torso, so you've got like level 3A protection over it. It's like, who would have thought about that shit, man? Like, that's crazy. So, but again, just another amazing example of how like things line up when we're talking about stuff on our show. So you have this and I have this. Like, oh my god, the similarities there. It's crazy. But yeah, like they had another article in the news about a kid at a high school here in Tampa that got arrested. And I think she brought like a stun gun. I mean, it's not exactly a weapon, but it's not exactly not a weapon. So it's just like, can we stop? Can we like hey, let's get everybody in high school and in school age together. Let's go. For the kids that are younger than middle school, I'm sorry I have to hear this, but can we all collectively get together and pull our heads out of our fourth points of contact? That would be fantastic.
And
because this shit is depressing.
Yeah, stop acting like little
shits.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna see it. I was gonna let somebody else.
I'll say it. Listen, I'm a therapist. I work with kids. Them little assholes, man. I tell you what, they can push the buttons. And if you're not a therapist, you just don't know. If you're not a teacher, oh, I'm sure you know. I got you. I'm not still calling anybody out by name, but hey, you guys know. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that are just depressing about, going to school nowadays. It's like, it's just terrible. I mean, I'm so happy that we have good kids. Like, your boys are great. My daughter, I think, is pretty awesome. She's, pretty wise to the ways of the world, at 11 years old and all this stuff. So you do your best preparing, but at the same time, you're just like, are they ever going to be prepared enough? And the answer is probably going to be no. They're not going to be. So it's just, I mean, and if you're not careful, any topic you talk about nowadays is just fucking depressing. It's awful.
Yeah.
Like, you just sit here and you're just like,
I just think it's gotten like, it's just got, well, I guess you could say, like, it kind of makes you wonder, like what happened that's gotten it to get to this point? Like, because I mean,
a lot of shit.
Kids fought when we were in school, like when we were in middle school. I don't, and like when I'm genuinely thinking about it, there's not a lot of times off the top of my head that I can think of that kids were stabbed, kids were, almost killed or whatever. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me, because if you ask me, I personally feel like in our generation, and like we had it, like, we did have it slightly worse. Like, we didn't have the smartphones. We didn't, like, there were so many things that we didn't have then. And we didn't end up trying to kill each other. Like,
it's because we played outside without the use of a GPS enabled watch. And you came home when the street lights came on, and you heard your Spanish grandmother or mother going, "Ay, Dios! Let's go!"
Yeah.
And it's a generalization. I'm not making fun of one of our Hispanic family members. So.
Or in my mom's case, Macho!
Yeah. So I think I can partially answer your question. And it's funny how, like, my mind always kind of goes towards comedy, right?
Yes. Self-deprecation.
Well, not just that. So, like, comedy is very much is a pretty good thermometer and barometer of the times. I can remember listening to some of Jeff. Like, I had a couple of Jeff Foxworthy's audio comedy albums on cassette tape. I know I'm aging myself there. It's on cassette. Shut up! No.
Or Adam Sandler on CD with Fatty McGee.
Okay. My bad. As I was, my bad. But yeah, so Foxworthy. This was before Blue Collar, so Foxworthy was doing pretty well on his own. And he talked about, he's like, man, nowadays you got kids bringing guns to school. Guns to school. Can you believe that? Back when I was in school, we used to bring frogs to school. Hell, you bring a frog to school now, somebody shoot it. Like, and this was like the late 90s. I was probably in middle school, and it's just like, it's funny
Right
because it's
around
at the time, and
Columbine,
now
because I think Columbine happened in
Columbine happened in
98,
99. It was
99.
it was my
Yeah.
first year of school of high school.
Damn.
Yeah. It's in a couple years it'll be 30 years since that happened. That's wild.
Yeah.
That's fucking wild. But anyway, yeah. I mean,
Fucking wild.
crazy. Crazy. But anyway, I mean, but yeah, I mean, you look at how like comedy changes over like I saw something, I can't bring it up here because it would be way too polarizing. Remind me, I'll
Yeah.
tell you about it after the show. But it's
Huey.
a clip of Rob Schneider, and it's a bit that he did from his stand up, and it's like, wow, because like really good comedy doesn't make you laugh. It makes you laugh, and then afterwards you go, huh.
Yo. Oh.
Oh, I didn't think about it like that. It's like, God damn, okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at all the like the political cartoons from back in the day and all that kind of stuff. I mean, but that's you use humor to like to really provoke some good intentful thought and discussion and shit. It's just like hell yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're getting off on a little bit of a tangent. I'm sorry. But yeah, we're talking about depression. So we talked about sometimes like growing up, like I would say I probably had a little bit of depression here and there, especially growing up in like middle school and then like my first couple years in high school, because I remember like me being very, very, very introverted. My first year of high school, like it was fun because I did marching band and all this other stuff, and I was like, this is cool, we're in high school. But dude, I just remember just being like looking around at all these like the juniors and seniors were just these gargantuanly larger people. I felt like I was like this big, and they were like, oh, green giant. Like they're like walking around like that and shit. And I'm just like, they look
Oh
like
my
adults. Like, why does
God.
it feel like I'm in a penitentiary, not a high school? Like, this is crazy.
You bring up the whole like I haven't heard that in years. Green giant.
I don't know where that came from. It came out of that Rolodex of junk drawer in my mind. So it's all good.
Yeah.
But I just remember like looking at everybody and they're so well, like they were a combo. You had the football players and the wrestlers, and like you kind of looked up to them a little bit, and at the same time you just felt like little tiny fish in a big fucking body of water, and you're just like,
Little tiny Tim.
why do we have to always do the Tiny Tim accent? Like, wee little Tiny Tim, a tiny little tadpole floating around in a tidal pool. Shut up.
Because it makes the most sense.
No, it doesn't. It's a little insensitive.
Boy.
You just have to no.
Indeed it was.
No. Shut the fuck up. It's not even Spanish anymore, you jackass. Shut
See,
your mouth.
I didn't do the char. You did.
But it doesn't matter, okay? You just went there to start off this nonsensical crap there, my guy. Anyway. I don't know what the hell you just said. He's like one of those like marionette puppets. We got to stop doing the sight. I can't hear you because you're whispering, or you took the boom off your headset or something, so I can't hear you anymore. Well, still, you just like, this is not the time to be doing ASMR.
It's not.
There we go. Now shut your mouth. Anyway, so yeah, depression is, I remember like at one point just, so we talk about those symptoms. So if we go into that first article, and I'm just kind of looking over before we start reading it. So doctors define a major depressive episode as having 5 or more of the following symptoms within a 2-week period, and these include sadness, loss of pleasure or interest in activities, sleeping too little or too much, weight loss or gain, tiredness, reduced concentration, repetitive or unintentional movements, slowing of mental or physical activities, feeling worthless or excessive guilt, thoughts of death or suicide. I'm like reading that and I'm just like 5, right? Like, there's about 3 or 4 of those sometimes that just are always kind of lingering in the background. Instead of having the angel and the devil, it's like you got those guys sitting on your shoulder, like, "Oh, what's gonna be today? Let's make this fun." But I
Let's
mean,
see. Sadness, loss of pleasure or interest in activities, sleeping too little too much, weight loss or gain, tiredness, reduction in concentration, repetitive or unintentional movements, slowing of mental or physical activities, feeling worthless or excessive guilt, thoughts of death or suicide. Check every single one of them.
I think at one point or another we could have checked it. I mean, one of the time. So I'm not saying this to startle anybody, but I
Yeah.
remember very distinctly, like sitting in my room for hours on end, and I had a legal pad, and like I sat down and wrote all the different ways I could off myself. I'm just like, I got like 3.5 pages into this, and I'm just sitting there looking at this, going, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, throw this shit away right now. This is some negative stuff. Like, just get rid of it."
Been there too.
And it's
Although not, necessarily writing it down. But yeah, definitely been
that's
there.
how I could like quantify stuff. It's like writing it down, making a list or some shit. But it's just like, yeah. So, but I mean, it's easy to say like being depressed, like in regards to what we went through in the military. Like, I can recall a few things right offhand. Being depressed at basic, like you're kind of off in the real world, off on your own, getting a taste of like I'm literally in this by myself. I've got other people around me, but they're just in it for themselves too. So like this is going to be interesting for sure. Sorry, my phone. Something weird. Um you couldn't call, you couldn't like you kind of had to cut the proverbial cord from mom and dad or family for a little while until that
Yep.
first phone call and shit. It's just like, oh my god, sorry. And then um being overseas when we were coming back from an airport run, and we had a 2 truck convoy. I was in the rear truck in the turret, and I waved to this little kid, and the little kid waved back, and this older gentleman saw the kid waving and just started fucking wailing on this little kid. And I couldn't do anything because he wasn't doing anything to invoke the ROE, the rules of engagement at the time. So I'm just literally watching this. I'm the only one facing the rear, and I'm just watching this girl get her ass kicked. And I'm just like, all because I was fucking miserable for like a week. I was just like, I didn't wave to nobody. I kind of like withdrew inside myself, and I was just like, I try not to show that American flag on my uniform. Like, not that I'm ashamed of it, but I'm just like, I don't want anybody else getting their ass kicked on my behalf. It's like,
Yeah.
what about you, man? What are some like depressive moments that like stick out for you?
Good God, where to start?
Oh shit!
uh,
Pull up a chair, get comfy. Good God. Now again, this is kind of one of those darker topics where we have to use humor as kind of a way to counteract. It's kind of like the yin and the yang. You got the white and the black side of the yin and yang that are kind of counterbalancing each other. We have to use humor and positivity and sarcasm as a way to fight the darkness. Okay, so
yeah.
understand that.
Good God. Well, I
All right,
have
we'll
had
go rapid fire. Basic.
basic training. Am I good enough? Am I going to
Oh,
be able to make it through this? Like,
feelings of unworthiness. Yeah.
was this the right choice? Did I, screw up? Am I a screw up? Like it was a
Or that good question that everybody asks themselves, what the fuck was I thinking?
yeah. It's funny.
We've
Like
all asked ourselves that a bunch of times.
I kind of sort of had that question in my head, but at the same time, I kind of sort of didn't. Because like
Yeah.
my thing was like, you know, I for a long time wanted to get into the military, and then I got there and it's like, wow, this sucks ass. And then it was like, I keep going, day by day, and all of a sudden it's like, wow,
I'm
this
sorry,
sucks
I have to
ass
interrupt
a
you.
lot more than I thought it was gonna suck
You
ass.
sounded so much like Bam Margera from Jackass. Dude, we were hauling so much ass, right? Because he's got that Pennsylvania accent and stuff. It's
Yeah.
funny. I don't know why that just popped in my head. We're
He's like
doing it,
disappeared
guy.
off the face of the earth, by the way.
Well,
Nobody knows where the hell
he kind of got into a bad. He really got into a lot of trouble emotionally after Ryan Dunn died in that car accident.
Oh yeah, I forgot
Yeah,
about that.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
he was doing the car was going so fast. The only way they could identify the body was from the tattoos because it got mangled bad. Like they were doing like 150 miles an hour on some freaking back road, hit a tree, and the car and the people just exploded. So ever since then, like he's kind of like come into a bad way and stuff. He's been married and divorced once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
Um, like he gained a bunch of weight and stuff, and it's like you just see it and you're just like, ugh, this is so awful. And like a lot of times, like when they filmed like the most recent movie, Jackass Forever, he was barred from the set because they were just like, man, you can't be around here because it's like a lot of negativity. You're gonna depress everybody and all this kind of stuff, and just
Yeah.
can't do it, dude. So I mean, I feel for the guy because he was hilarious.
Yeah.
But like
I mean,
that
all those
one little
guys
thing
were.
will fuck you up. I mean, as a collect, like each one of those guys was funny together and then also by themselves. Like Knoxville is just still the biggest wise ass and shit. And like Steve-O, like that's pretty miraculous. Like, he got sober, started going taking care of his body and stuff. Now he's got like an RV where he's got a podcast studio in the RV and just drives around, interviews people that he wants to. It's pretty badass. I'm like, I want to do that. Like this would be cool.
Heck yeah.
So, but yeah, dude, I totally feel for that whole am I good enough? Because like especially for me, like so the way our company was worked and it's kind of laid out is most of the guys, anybody that was going to Ranger School had a contract to go to Ranger School was in our platoon. So we had a lot of guys that were going to Airborne and on Ranger. I think only 2 of them made it through Ranger School and shit. I don't know how many times they recycled. That's not important. But so like,
It doesn't
and
matter
here's
how
like,
many times you recycle, just as long as you make it through.
yeah. But and it's like, especially too, like at the time. I mean, we had a lot of guys going, "Hey, you National Guard guys better get good at filling up those fucking sandbags." It's like, shut up, man. Fuck are you?
Yeah, I mean, there's National Guard guys that have their tabs,
There's National Guard guys that are fucking, deployed a hell of a lot more than active duty did.
Also true.
More. Also true. So okay, so we talked about basics. So like in the service, like I remember showing up to my unit and like just being the new guy there, and I'm just like, I felt very intimidating. Maybe not depressed, but definitely some of those symptoms that we talked about, like the feeling of like worthlessness, just like, yeah, that was a big one, and all that kind of shit. So because we had guys, like I had a guy in my unit that was he was in Somalia. He was there when all the shit went down in the events of Black Hawk Down. Blackburn.
He was in the Moog.
He was in the Moog. That's right. The kid that fell out of the helicopter, Blackburn.
Yeah.
That was his best friend.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we watched his friend, fall 75 feet to the ground and get all kind of fucked up. So like this guy, I mean, this guy is just an amazing dude as a warrior, as a man, as a soldier, as a guy. Like you're just like, wow. And I'm just like, Did I do the right thing? But and especially being young, like when you're an E2, E3, you still get called private, so it's a little bit different. Once you make specialist, though, it's like
Rivets.
you kind of get that little bit of, it's like, all right, I got a little bit of rank above me, part of the mafia. Shit's gonna get cool. So,
EFO.
yep. So anyway, we should probably read some of these articles that we got. So
Yeah. I would say real quick, like, before you hit the article, like when I got to the unit, for me, it was definitely like, it always went back to that one phrase, am I good enough?
yeah.
And that's a bad fucking feeling to have. It's a real bad feeling to have.
And we're
Because
just talking military right now. We're not talking like in real life. Am I good enough as a student, as a worker at my job, as a fucking parent? So you're just like, oh,
yeah.
Oh man, like we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's talk about the articles first. But
Huey.
so this first article is from Medical News Today. It does not have a date on it that I can find. But it's called What to Know About Depression in the Military and Stories from Veterans. We've already referred to this once already, talking about symptoms. So we're going to read through this, kind of get the party going a little bit. Tell me when you're good to hook there, bud. Get the article up. All right, drinking water.
I got the article. I got the article up. I just got to put it up on the screen.
Okay. Why don't you do that? They're gay.
Listen here, they're gay.
All right, there, Gaylord.
Do. Bam.
There we go. All right, without further ado, the prevalence of depression in the military is higher than in the general population. This may stem from the fact that military life involves significant stressors like deployment, combat, and relocation. The higher likelihood of depression does not end with discharge from the military, as it also affects veterans. Additionally, the increased depression rate affects families of active duty military. This may be due to the stressors associated with being separated from a spouse, such as loneliness, and increased parenting demand. I almost said parenting. I'm like, that's not the right word. And increased parenting demands. This article investigates the prevalence of depressions. Yeah, I see. Yeah, exactly. My head hurts. No, I already said that. This article investigates the prevalence of depression in the military and after discharge, as well as risk factors, symptoms, and sources of support. It also includes firsthand stories from Danny Mayberry, an Iraq and Afghanistan combat veteran, and Michael Allen, a Marine Corps veteran. Why aren't you scrolling? There we go. Symptoms of depression in soldiers and family. You see a guy here, Vietnam veteran with a little Labrador puppy who is just adorable.
Vietnam.
Yeah. As you said earlier, doctors define a major depressive episode as having 5 or more of the following symptoms within a 2-week period, which include sadness, loss of pleasure or interest in activities, sleeping too little or too much, weight loss or gain, tiredness, reduced concentration, repetitive or unintentional movements, slowing of mental or physical activities, feeling worthless or excessive guilt, and thoughts of death or suicide. So this is Danny's story. Symptoms during service. I first noticed depression symptoms when I was 27. I drank much more than I planned, worked longer hours, stopped doing things I really enjoyed, and spent way more time in isolation. Now, isolation is definitely something that we need to go back and talk about down the road.
Yeah.
Because that's a big one. Not like the fact that, like, hey, I just need to be away from people for a little while, but like all the time, constantly, different story.
Yeah.
And I had to have that differentiation made to me earlier this season in a talk with a friend of mine. So
yeah, when you're pushing yourself away from people and you're forcing yourself to be alone and you're forcing, yourself to be
but again, I
in your
feel
own
like
bubble.
I
You
feel
know,
like
it's
there's a balance there.
kind of like a key term, or not key term, but key symptom.
I feel like there's a balance here though, because like I kind of like being able to go if it's just me, like over the weekend, my daughter's not going to be here. I'll go camping in my backyard, just sleep outside, hear the crickets, you know, all that kind of stuff, without the sounds of electronics, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of calming. It's very soothing to a certain extent. So,
Yeah,
but
nothing wrong with that. It's
anything in
they
balance.
I believe the naturists consider that grounding, like
Grounding, yes, that's absolutely right.
getting to
That's
know
called.
your mother oit.
Prevalence and statistics. A 2021 meta-analysis reviewed research to determine the prevalence of depression among members of the armed forces. It found the following. Depression affects 23% of active duty military. Suicidal ideation or suicide attempts occur in 11% of active duty military. Suicidal ideation refers to thoughts or preoccupation with ending one's life. Suicidal ideation or attempts happen in 18% of active duty military who use drugs and 9% of those who consume alcohol. To compare these statistics to the general population, 8.4% of adults in the United States have had at least one major depressive episode in 2020. Help is out there. If you or someone you know is in crisis and considering suicide or self-harm, please seek support. Call or text the 988 Lifeline at 988 or chat at 988lifeline.org.
Gee,
Caring,
where have we heard that one
I
before?
know, right? Like, oh my God. Caring counselors are available to listen and provide free and confidential support 24/7. Text home to the crisis text line at 741-741 to connect with a volunteer crisis counselor for free and confidential support 24/7. Not in the United States, find a helpline in your country with befrienders worldwide. Call 911 or your local emergency services number if you feel safe to do so. If you're calling on behalf of someone else, stay with them until help arrives. You may remove weapons or substances that could cause harm if you can do so safely. If you're not in the same household, stay on the phone with them until help arrives. Depression after service. The elevated risk of depression persists after a person's military service ends. Veterans, particularly those who have served in combat, have experienced more trauma in their life than non veterans. Research shows the following. Depression affects 20% of veterans, that's 1 in 5. Suicidal ideation or attempts occur 11% of veterans. In veterans who use drugs, the rates of suicidal ideation and attempts are 18 and 30%, respectively. Suicidal ideation or attempts occur in 8% of veterans who consume alcohol. Stigma and risk factors. In the military, mental health stigma derives from the misperception that a service member should be deficit free to engage in combat. A person with depression may fear ridicule or worry that others will perceive them as weak. Michael's story, stigma during service. Quote, I went into a deep depression knowing I was not in the company that I thought I would find myself. I had no support. During the 80s, therapy was not available for a Marine who had a dark side. They too assumed that all Marines felt the same as I did. I tried to get help several times. I got the same answer. But you've always been that way. There's nothing wrong with you. You're a United States Marine. You can handle it. The stigma can also involve career concerns. Underlying the stigma is an erroneous belief that mental health conditions are just, quote, in a person's head, end quote. In reality, the mind and physical body are intricately interwoven. Additionally, being in the military may also increase a person's risk of depression. Research notes that the military environment has factors that may increase the likelihood of depression, including being separated from a support system of loved ones and friends, seeing themselves and others in danger, experiencing the intense stress of combat. Other risk factors that the military poses include physical fitness concerns, legal concerns from the Uniform Code of Military Justice, command leadership discord, rank and promotion complications, frequent relocations, deployments. I'm gonna stop. I read it earlier, but it really just sunk in right now. Like thinking about rank and promotion complications, like you
Yeah,
get really depressed when you get younger guys that get passed up over you. You're like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Am I not good enough? Here's that question again. You know,
exactly.
and it's just like,
And you know what the crazy thing is like that happens in that happens in not just the military, it happens in civilian life too. Like I mean, shoot, I've ran into that shit. Um, and I remember specifically thinking like shit, like I do all of this. I bust my ass. I do what I can. Like what is wrong with me that makes me not able to be promotable? Like what is it about me that makes me, you know, not eligible or whatever the hell. You know what I
what am I
mean?
doing wrong? What am I not
What am
doing
I doing
right?
wrong? What am I
What am
not
I?
doing
What?
right?
Whose ass am I not kissing?
Bingo.
So yeah,
So I could relate to that. Like, and
for
I could relate to
sure,
that hard.
for sure. You just hear that. You just see that. You're like, ooh, checking that box. Absolutely. So
Yep.
Danny's story: stigma during service. Quote: it was very difficult for me to talk to my peers about my mental health. Sorry, ad popped up. Since I worked in the medical field, it was easy for me to recognize some problems and seek help in order to get ready for the next deployment. I did not know of other service members that struggled with depression until I began getting help. I actually continued to keep a distance from veterans for about a decade because a result of me asking for help was being separated from the military. Once I began treatment, it was easy to talk with friends and family about what I was going through. Being transparent is crucial to maintaining a healthy life. Older research from 2011 explains that during deployment, military spouses have to deal with their fear of safety for the deployed spouse. They also temporarily have to take on the role of a single parent, which can lead to loneliness, financial concerns, stress, lack of sleep, increased parenting. See, I almost did it again. Parenting.
Parenting.
6 letter words kicking my ass tonight, folks. Parent instead of parent. Increased parenting demands. Additionally, once the deployed spouse returns home, it causes drastic role shifts within the family. Consequently, the at home spouse may need time to adjust to changes, such as a loss of independence. The associated stress during and following deployment depletes the at home spouse's resources. This may result in the worsening of a mental health condition such as depression. Without treatment, stress can affect the spouse's mental health and children's well being. It can also reduce the military member's support system and have a negative effect on reintegration into the family. The study the study authors concluded that depression interventions for military families are necessary. And this is going back to Danny, family life and recovery. My mental health permeates every aspect of my life. I still have regular suicidal ideations, depressive episodes, outbursts of anger, and intrusive thoughts. This year, my wife and I have embraced that taking care of my mental health requires me to help others. I decided that I decided to get help before going on what was supposed to be my fourth combat deployment. But asking for help at that time meant that I was separated from my unit and placed in a rehabilitation facility for alcohol dependence and PTSD. Overall, everything had to change, and I had to rely on people who were way more experience to help guide me through a difficult life transition. Since asking for help, I've been able to complete a bachelor's and master's degree, complete 8 years of marriage, start a business, and buy a home in Hawaii. Most importantly, I'm equipped to combat my symptoms of depression when they arise. And then this one is called Seeking Support. The following are sources of support for service members and their families. Military One Source. The Department of Defense provides this free resource for the military and their families to help with an array of issues, including mental health concerns. It offers a 24/7 toll-free number of 1-800-342-9647. Again, that's 1-800-342-9647 for Military One Source. Psychological Health Center of Excellence offers psychological health research consultations for the military and their families. It has a 24/7 toll-free number of 1-866-966-1020. Again, 1-866-966-1202. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. 1020. 1020 is the end of that. Alternatively, it provides live chat and email contact options. VA Mental Health. There is a branch of U.S. Department of Military of Veteran Affairs that connects veterans and their families to mental health services. And now we're going to read an article about Michael's recovery. I went to a therapist years ago and got absolutely nothing out of it. He asked questions, the same questions I had been asking of myself. So I decided rather than pay him, just keep asking myself questions. The best advice I have is to not make decisions when you are down. Make a promise to yourself and don't make decisions when you are at your worst. Wait until you're back up and make decisions. Write them down if you have to, just so you can remember them, and put your notes in a prominent place so that you can always see them. Do not make decisions when you are down. Depression in the military affects active duty members and their families along with veterans. The rate of depression is higher than the rate in general population because of the stressors that military life poses. Aside from the stress of combat and separation from families, some soldiers with depression also experience stigma surrounding their mental health. Any person with symptoms of depression should seek immediate help. The 24/7 toll-free hotlines make it possible to speak with someone immediately. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What was the next one you wanted to read?
Here we. Let's see.
Do you want to read Veterans and Depression or the one from charliehealth.com?
Trying to see. It looks like oh hell. I didn't catch that I didn't catch that when I added it before. Depression, the charliehealth.com is actually somewhat a repeat of the last article.
So you want me to read the Pyramid Healthcare article?
It kind of mentions a lot of the same symptoms and
they both do, or
the one from Charlie
Health. So yeah. Don't read that one.
Yeah, we won't go into that.
I'll skip that. So this is an article from pyramid-healthcare.com from 12/29 of 2022, pretty much just titled Veterans and Depression. You got that one pulled up? Are you getting it up?
Yeah, I'm getting it pulled up right now.
Lights give off heat. Good Lord. There we go.
They give out a lot of heat.
Ready?
Haley.
All right. So, feelings of sadness, loss of interest in activities people once enjoyed, isolation from others, and low energy may be signs of depression. In some cases, depression can cause the affected individual to feel hopeless about the future and even contemplate suicide. Depression can affect anyone. No individual, regardless of age, gender, racial or ethnic background, religion, or socioeconomic status, is immune to mental health problems. There's no specific cause or trigger for developing depression either. Depression can occur for a variety of reasons or result from a combination of factors. In the United States, major depression is one of the most common mental health disorders overall. In the year 2020 alone, 21 million US adults, or 8.4% of the population, experienced at least one major depressive episode. Experiencing a stressful life event, such as
Way more than in
lockjaw,
American history. And it's because we all were locked up in a freaking cage, technically.
true. Oh, I just stretched my back out. That was wonderful. Sorry. Experiencing a stressful life event, such as a job loss, divorce, hmm, illness, or loss of a loved one, may contribute to an individual developing depression. Change can be difficult, and adjusting to new circumstances outside of one's control can certainly impact mental health, i.e., look at the pandemic we just went through, like Alamo just said. For individuals who have served in the military, deployment as well as readjusting to civilian life post deployment are examples of stressful life events unique to veterans that could set off post military depression. In addition, moral injury and or trauma stemming from experiences during combat could lead to depression. Depression can disrupt an individual's physical health, family and social life, career, and daily functioning. Fortunately, with professional treatment, it is possible to recover from depression and lead a happy, healthy life. Studies have shown that overall, veterans are no more likely to develop major depression than civilians. However, regardless of military status, depression is a common condition and can have harmful, even fatal consequences without proper treatment. Additionally, veterans are more susceptible than the average person to other mental health issues that can co occur with depression, including substance use. It is important for veterans and their loved ones to keep an eye on their mental health and seek professional help if they begin to experience troubling symptoms. However, it's also important to note that not all veterans who experience trauma during their service or who struggle with substance use will develop depression. A study examining data on 7,000 men aged 50 or older actually found that veterans in this group were no more likely than non-veterans to suffer from depression. These findings were surprising because veterans, especially those who have served in combat, have presumably experienced more stress and trauma in their lives than the civilian counterparts. For this reason, the researchers expected to see higher rates of depression, but found that the opposite was true. Now, we're going to stick a pin in this real quick, folks, because I want to bring up something that my good man Alamo here said once a long time ago. Considering the age, if you look at the age of the guys, okay, like World War II, they all came back home together. They're on troop ships coming back over from the Atlantic and whatnot. They have time to process all of this stuff and make everything kind of, make sense of all of it and kind of figure it out before all that stuff. Nowadays, it's not nearly the same thing. You got guys rotating in and out of units and whatnot, especially during Vietnam. You have units going over with a high op tempo during GWAT, where they had to kind of at one point had to be like, listen, you need some dwell time just to go home and kind of like unscramble the omelet of your brain from all the combat you're seeing. So that kind
Or
of
the
doesn't surprise
head
me.
trauma.
That doesn't surprise me that older guys are just like, oh, I have time to figure it out. So
Yeah.
but quick note. Anyway. Blah, 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 blah. Older veterans reported less depression than non veterans of the same age. However, this may be in part due to cultural and social factors. Soldiers are trained not to show emotion or weakness, and older generations may be more hesitant to admit having depression and or seeking professional help. These factors may also contribute to the fact that reports of depression and other mental health conditions among veterans vary by war era. I think we just said that. Vietnam and Korean War veterans. Vietnam veterans are twice as likely to have elevated depression and anxiety than World War II or Korean War veterans in the study. Further research is required to drill down into the reasoning behind this data. Iraq and Afghanistan vets. A study found higher rates of disability in Iraq and Afghanistan veterans who had a combination of depression, PTSD, and traumatic brain injury, which the researchers called the deployment trauma factor. Individuals with these three conditions were more likely to struggle with difficulties in getting around, communicating, and relationships, self care, and other daily tasks. Because of their experiences during combat, active duty, and military life, veterans face unique mental health challenges that not all counselors, therapists, and other professionals will be able to understand. At Pyramid Military Therapy and Recovery Programs, our treatment curriculum is designed specifically for the veteran population to address underlying trauma and moral injury, built on a foundation of extensive research into the best methods and approach to support veterans with mental health and substance use disorders. So, in that place, looks like it's in Dallas, Pennsylvania. I don't know, it was Dallas in Pennsylvania. Interesting.
Neither did I. That's interesting.
Yep. So, okay, good. Turn this off. So, what did you want to add to all that stuff, man?
No, I just.
Why are you holding a wrench? What are you wrenching on while I'm reading?
My pinkies. So coming from somebody who has, I'm just gonna be honest. Like I've dealt with depression firsthand. Jesus.
And it's hard to talk about because you think you start kind of going in, you tiptoe into that deep end of the mental pool, and you're just like, oh,
yeah, you're dipping my toe into that cold ass water. Like I would say, and this is just to be honest, it's probably, I would say, about maybe 8 or 9 of the 15 years I've been home from combat. It sucks, man. And the thing is like when you get into these ruts, you don't know you're in them. Oh crap, sorry about that. You don't know you're in them until
you're deep in them.
Until you're deep in them and someone tells you that you're in them. Because it usually always takes somebody else to be like, this seems like, depression.
You okay? What are you doing, man?
Yeah. And I had a lot of those moments. I had a lot of those moments in the years since I've been back home. And they've led me down some really, really dark paths. And it gets kind of hard talking about it because, there's some tough times that occurred during the bulk of and tough situations that rose up during those situations. And as I'm thinking about them now, they're kind of really coming to the forefront of my brain, like, coming from the recesses back here. And it's like, oh yeah, remember that. And remember when this happened. And remember when, she said this to you and you said this back. And, like it, because honestly, especially if you're in a relationship, you're not going through that depression by yourself. You're going through that depression with the person you're with. And especially if that person is strong enough, um, in which case, I believe my wife is a fucking rock star. Um,
She's not here to stand up for herself, so I will. Yes, I am. Yeah.
she, she's genuinely, um, she's definitely
If you
the
folks don't know who we're talking about Alamo's wife, and like she is like legit one of the most genuinely badass, nice people that you want to have.
yeah.
I mean, you could have like the old crunchy, like wrinkly coach from Rocky Balboa in your corner, or you
Come
can have
on,
his
rock!
wife.
Come on, rock!
I'm taking his wife because she'll be like, "Hey, man, punch him right in the toodles." Yes, ma'am.
um, you know, and like I said, it takes a special kind of person to be with someone that has those kind of issues and has those kind of issues, uh, not on a regular, but has had those issues on a regular enough basis where the individual begins to recognize it in that person. Um, and to be like, you're getting to that point again. Because there were times, man, I really don't know. I really don't know what I would have done if, you know, if she wasn't there,
Yeah.
you know. Um, because sometimes you need that adamantium steel coming at you, to kind of, get through that, hard shell. And it's rough, man. It's rough when you got to think about what, you know, you have not done, what you could have done, uh, how you could have done it better, and not going into full detail, obviously, because I mean, if I were to go into full detail, this would be like a 4 hour show. Um,
So let me kind of turn over for a little bit. I'm gonna tag in here. So
yeah,
um I can understand where you're coming from. There's like one of the thing in the past few years, one of the things that like has been kind of led to well, let me rephrase that. One of the things that's caused a lot of depression was when my daughter's mother left. Um, because we had known each other for a while. And again, okay, so let me start off by saying I don't want to badmouth her because we have a pretty good relationship nowadays. We still co-parent very well. Things are a lot better than when they were in that very dark period of after we separated and all that stuff. Um, so like my benchmark was the fact like my parents when my dad passed, they were married for 42 years. And um I didn't even make it to 4. So a lot of that, like, are you good enough? And this, that, and the other, like, yeah, it fucking hit hard, man. It's just like that's why there's times where I love being around love being around people. And there's times where I'm just like, I'm just gonna go camping in my backyard around by the fire pit. I'm gonna smoke a stogie, leave me alone, kind of thing.
yeah,
So and especially like my daughter being very young at the time, I had a lot of feelings of self-doubt and unworthiness, and I'm just like, I got to do everything. I felt like almost kind of felt to the point where I was like overcompensating just to try to do the right thing with her. And I'm very fortunate that she understands, like, she's mature enough that we have been able to have some good heart to heart, in depth conversations about stuff. You know, I really feel like if she ever needed to come to me with something, she could, without judgment, prejudice, or anything like that. Um,
Yeah.
you know, because we've had that kind of talk, and she sees like the humanity of like what parenthood is. It's like it's a lot. If you're younger and you're not a parent, trust me when I say you don't know.
Yeah.
It's difficult. I mean,
Most definitely do
it's
not.
like when you tell an active duty person being in the reserves, the National Guard is harder, and they're looking at you like you're fucking stupid. I'm like, okay, try it. Go and have a full time job, a family, going to school, and you got military shit you all got to juggle. Yeah, go for it. And get back to me and let me know what that's like.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. So, like, and I'm trying not to get too far into this because, after she left, I had a lot of dark days where just, I was started driving for Uber at one point. So I was out all night, and like I wouldn't see my daughter. I was like a vampire. Like she would come in the morning and say hi to me and this, that, and the other. She was like still a toddler. I didn't even have a bed frame. I had a box spring and a mattress on the floor, so she could kind of like stumble up there, her cute little 3, 4 year old self and whatnot. And yeah, I there's a lot of days I don't even remember because it was just like I had really had to like just fake it to make it through the day. So that being said, I'm very fortunate and blessed and very it brings me a lot of joy that her mother and I we're not ever going to get back together, and that's fine. Not mad at that. That's just is what it is. But it gives me a lot of pride that we can still, even though we have nothing to do with each other, we can still be there to cooperatively and jointly raise and support and cheer on our kid. Because she's at a very important stage in her life. She's getting ready to go to middle school, and it's just like that's when the big shit happens.
Yeah.
Like, so you know, and it's hard, and I don't know. I'm starting to ramble here, so I'm going to stop. But I mean, it's just
Ramble damble.
no. I mean, it's something like until you've been through it, you don't know how bad it gets. Like everybody's like, "Well, do you have a good relationship with her mother?" I'm like, I said, "Yeah, we do now because I've been through the dark days and the rough days. I mean, at one point, my daughter
Yeah.
was living out your way, and I only saw her every other weekend for like 6 months time. So, and I
Yeah.
didn't get to talk to her all the time. So that was hard. But having been through that and everything, it's like it makes you really appreciate the things that you do have and all that kind of stuff. So you can look at that and go, yeah, I was really, really fucking depressed, but looking back now, it's like I can recognize those factors and definitely do something about it. So, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to say here, folks, is you know trust the people around you, trust your friends, the people in your inner circle. They're gonna tell you like this guy right here. The two of us have been like, man, I'm not doing so hot. Like let's do something. Let's get together. Let's hash it out. All that kind of shit. Like let's do something.
Yeah.
So
Hey we. Hey we.
and I think that's again that's what we're trying to just convey here is like we say all the time, we are social creatures by his grand design. We are not meant to go through things alone. Okay, reach out to people that you know. Um, who else is going to know you better than yourself than a close friend? And just be like, man, you're a little off today. Like, what's going on? Like, let's talk about it. That kind of shit.
Yeah.
So, um, I don't think I have anything else for this conversation without like just turning into a blubbering idiot. Just sitting there, going, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was. Yeah, and it was gonna get hard for me to talk about certain things without having to go into full detail about a lot of shit, and going that
Oh man, I didn't even
going
talk
that
about.
far into it it's rough.
I didn't even talk about, like after she left, like getting fired, from my job December 1st of that year.
Yeah,
I felt like the biggest fucking pile of shit because I could not give my daughter a good Christmas. This is her
yeah,
second Christmas ever. She's 2. But it's funny how those little shimmers of light happen when you're in the dark. It's like I will always, always, always be eternally grateful for my 2 brothers, my older and my younger brother, because they literally, like, no shit, they saved her Christmas. They took care of everything, made sure that she had, toys, knew that she was loved. She knows she's loved, but just gave her like fun stuff for Christmas and whatnot. And that was a hard Christmas, man. It's just like,
yeah.
I was happy for her that she got to do all that stuff, but it was just like, you're thrilled that on one hand, you're so thrilled that you got people there in your corner backing you up saying, hey man, I fucking got you. Don't worry about it. You're
Yeah.
good. But
I don't know.
part of you still sits there and lingers like I couldn't do it myself. Like I'm supposed to be able to do this and I couldn't. You're such a fucking loser. Like
Yeah,
it's fucking hard as shit, man.
yeah. I've been there, man. And to to bring it back to that lighter note that we were talking about, like I don't know why, but for whatever reason, when you said eternally grateful, my mind went to the little green aliens from Toy Story in the claw box. You have saved our lives. We are eternally grateful. I don't know why. I don't know why. It just was like eternally grateful.
Wow. Let me get like a third eyeball right here.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh man.
So funny. Oh shit. I'm glad you said that though, because it got me out of that little bit of that puddle I was in. I was just like, so I appreciate you.
Oh man.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
dude.
so that's our conversation on depression. I mean, just everybody goes through it. And if you say they haven't, they're probably not old enough. They're probably like 4 or 5. Okay, it
Yeah.
happens to everybody. It just depends on what you've been exposed to, what you've been around. And that's okay because it happens to everybody. I mean, it happens to a lot of people. So don't feel like you need to go through it, but just understand that it's probably a not so abnormal thing. It's like, okay, you went through some depression. Cool. You know what that feels like now, so you can recognize it.
Yep.
I know I had a flat tire. Now I know how to change it and patch a tire. Cool. Now you know what to do. Kind of the same thing. So, but unless you have anything else you want to add there, dude.
Now, like I said, if I go into full detail, we're,
Gotcha.
we're gonna have like a 4-hour show, dude.
Yeah. But again, that's been our conversation on depression. I know this is one of those subjects you could go a lot of different directions and you can go just in depth and talk about this shit for a week and we still wouldn't cover anything. So we kind of
Yeah.
hit a little bit here and there all over the place, just kind of talking about stuff. So please feel free to leave a comment um, wherever you're watching the show at or listening to the show. We'd love to hear from you.
Biggest message out of this is, man, like, we all go through it.
You are not alone.
If you're feeling like you're getting there, man, if the signs are there and people are saying like, you know, hey, you seem like you're a bit off, it's probably a good sign for you to go ahead and talk to somebody. Like, don't wait until it's gotten to that point where there's like a loss of hope, which is what happened to me on multiple occasions throughout the years. Because that feeling that feeling sucks.
Yeah.
It does. It sucks.
Please
ass.
also understand, we're not trying to throw a pity party. We're trying to just say, hey, like, this is some of our personal experiences that we've been through. If it helps you understand and recognize the warning signs and the symptoms and what to look out for, hey, we're gonna happily pass this along to you. This is like an emotional Wikipedia. We're just sharing this with everybody that wants to look at it. We're not charging you $7.95 for a membership fee or none of that shit. We just want to make you as it's in a way it's kind of like being a parent. We want to make you as best prepared for the world out there as we can. And if we can help do that, then we're going to do that. So, but on that note, this has been our discussion for episode 109 entitled Depression. Hopefully you took something away from this. Whatever shape or form that is, it's not our place to say if it's right or wrong ever. But
Yeah.
if you can take something from it, great. If it makes you have, some internal monologue with yourself without getting too far into that, sticking your foot into that puddle of dark, deep water, it's great. It's okay to think about stuff. Just balance, everything in balance. So at this point, we're going to start closing out our show for this evening, kind of start wrapping it up and kind of recap over some stuff. If you're new to the show, Alamo and I, like I mentioned earlier, have been friends since high school. After high school, we stayed in touch. He was in his freshman year while I was a senior. We stayed in touch. We both ended up joining the military, the Army in particular, after 9/11. I went into the National Guard here in the state of Florida and deployed to Afghanistan. Alamo was in active duty. Went to a couple different duty stations and ended up overseas in Iraq. We have maintained that sense of brotherhood for a very long time. I call him brother without even thinking about it. Like, it's like, well, why wouldn't you? Duh. So, a few years back, we used to work together. We worked at a firearms retailer in Tampa. We had a blast. Like, we did some shit that I'm just like, I'm surprised that we didn't get in more trouble and or fired.
Yeah.
we had our third we had our third leg of the tripod. John, our friend John, worked with us. What a force of fucking nature that guy was. Like, straight up, man. John was one of the funniest fuckers that I have ever had the pleasure of knowing or working with. He just made the job so much fun.
Yeah.
And if you knew John, you know what we're talking about, because you can't describe him. You just have to experience him, right? So we all ended up going our own ways. And then after a while, Alamo reached out and said, hey, man, my wonderful, amazing wife has this thing that she does called Flipside Mentorship. Shameless plug. Flipsidementorship.com. She explained how that all got started, Alamo, because I don't remember all the details with that.
Basically, Flipside kind of was like a brainchild of Tish. After essentially we found out Jaden was being bullied because he was coming home with some bruises on his face, and from being such a light of life, you know what I mean, like for being as giddy and happy and everything else that he was before he started school, for him, mere like months into freaking his first school year, we're talking like the first 3 to 4 months of school, that he is just the light just came out of him.
Then was we in kindergarten?
This was in kindergarten.
Oy.
And then we find out, well, he's being bullied. And we ask him, well, why didn't you say anything? Now, we weren't able to look at any camera footage from the school for obvious reasons. Apparently, there's, certain laws that restrict the public from looking at that kind of video. But you know, from what they told us, there was an altercation on a playground, somehow, and Jaden ended up getting slipped. He ended up sliding down the slide after something happened at the top. Now, because of the angle of the cameras, they didn't catch what that event was, but they caught that something happened and he slid down the slide, and when he slid down the slide, he was crying. This bullying was going on for, at the time, I think Jaden, he was already going through it for like at least I believe it was like a month or 2 months. Again, never said anything to us. Well, long story short, when Tish found out that was happening, she was like, well, if that could happen to him, and he's in kindergarten, that can happen to any kid.
Yeah.
And she decided, well, if anybody's gonna say never again and try to make sure that it's never again, it's gonna be me, because why the hell wouldn't I try everything I can to make sure that kids are safe in the places that they go to school, the places that they play, and whatever. And why wouldn't I try to teach kids better values so that they don't end up picking on each other, bullying each other, telling each other bad things, beating, all that good stuff. And the flip side was born um, out of that whole incident. Eventually we got Jaden the help he needed, and he became like his old self again. And I think in large part it's because of the efforts of my wife that really ended up making that big difference.
Like I said earlier, folks, if you have had the pleasure of meeting this powerhouse of a person, Alamo's lovely white Tish, you would understand why. You'd want her in your corner because she's kind of like what was that line from Tommy Boy? She'll take no crap off of nobody, But anyway, so Tish approached me about working an event for Flipside Mentorship, and I was like, yeah, sure. She kind of explained the idea and the concept behind it, and I was like, sure, that sounds like a great idea. And Alamo and I got to do it together, and it's the first time we've hung out like that in a very long time, and it was just awesome. There may have been some footage of us screwing around, dancing to House of Pain's jump around in the yard at the house.
Jump around.
Yeah, that should be it. That'll be a good intro to the show.
Jump.
But anyway, so after all that, we started talking about like, man, like we got to do something more like that. I think you called me, you're like, we got to figure something out. And you brought up the idea of doing a podcast. And I was like, dude, I don't know shit about a podcast. It's like, dude, it's not that hard. They put a monkey in outer space. And I'm like, it's a solid point, my good man. Solid point. So we kind of, slept on it and talked about it. Well, a little while after that, I saw a Facebook post from a friend of John's that John had gone down a very bad path and turned a temporary problem into a permanent solution. He had committed suicide. When I found out about this, I called Alamo and I was like, hey, man, did you hear about John? And he's like, no, I got to call him. His birthday's coming up. I'm like, well, it's too late. You can't. He's gone. So for me, this was kind of like our big aha moment, where it's like, hey, you got the opportunity to do something about this. Like, I'm in, let's do it. So that's kind of where the progenesis of our show came from. And we eventually settled on the name, the Battle Bros podcast. And in the search for kind of like our message and our, like what we're going to be doing, we came up with the Bros Code. And what the Bros Code is is 4 easy things you can do where when things are getting hard or rough or whatnot, it's just going to help to keep you in the fight, keep you here. We don't want to see anybody else become one of those 22.
Yeah.
And they're saying nowadays it could be hella higher, which hopefully that's not the case. But
hopefully not. And and if that's the case, how the hell?
22 is
how
a
are
lot.
they letting it get that bad?
Yeah, exactly. 22 is a lot, but when you know somebody, one of those 22s it sucks and it stings that much worse.
Yeah.
So we came up with the bros code, and it's easy to remember. You just got to remember the letters BROS, bros. And because we're infantry guys, like we got to keep shit simple, otherwise.
Yeah.
So if you remember these 4 things, you're gonna have a pretty good chance of being okay. So number 1 is be tenacious. No matter what you choose in life, do it to the utmost of your abilities with your full attention and with gusto. Don't just go out there and be a mediocre parent. Go out there and be the best fucking parent you could be. Go out there and be the best, whatever the job is, being a postal worker or a janitor or whatever, like crossing guard. Who cares? Go out there and do it to the fullest of your ability and just try to make a little bit of a change in the world. You never know what that's going to lead to. In the words of the great Ron Swanson, always remember this. Don't half-ass 2 things. Whole ass 1 thing. Be tenacious. R, refuse to surrender. On the path of life, there are going to be things that come up that get you off course, get you discombobulated, kerfuddled. It happens. Okay, it's why they call it life. All right. No matter what happens, just remember that you don't quit. Okay, you get knocked down in the dirt. Okay, it sucks. You get up, you dust your brushes.
But I get up again.
Welcome to the depression / ADD episode about. We're both doing this shit. We both got that ad problem. But when you get knocked down in the dirt, get up, brush yourself off. Take out your compass, shoot your azimuth, get back on track, keep moving. Okay. Surrender. Oh, obliterate your obstacles. Going along with the last one, when you have those obstacles come up, sometimes you have to get a little creative in how you get around them. Okay. You may have to just kind of get off the road, go 25 to 30 meters into the wood line, parallel the road, get on the far side of the obstacle, get back on the road, and continue to move out. Simple. Sometimes you got to get a little creative. Sometimes you got to forge your own path and break some brush in the densest jungles that you've ever seen. All right. Sometimes you got to, if you got a wall, you got to go over it. You got to go under it. You go around it. Sometimes you just got to punch a hole right through it. Sometimes you have to breach a door. Sometimes you have to make a door. Sometimes you need C4s and Bangalores, or sometimes you need an armored vehicle to just kind of be like, oops.
Screw you, wall.
My bad. Whatever the case may be, obliterate your obstacles, get back on the mission. Charlie Mike, go for the X and hit the OBJ. Okay. Lastly, S. Seek out help in a time of need. As you mentioned earlier with our friend John, there's no way we can bring him back, and that's a travesty because he's a guy worth knowing. He was a great dude. He'd give you the shirt off his back. Always had a joke and just a really quirky smile, just going, yeah, nice. And it just always made you fucking chuckle, right?
It's either that or you made him chuckle while he's dealing with a customer. Yeah. And he's like, you're saying something to him, and he stops and he looks at you like,
yeah. We had so much fun working together, dude. It was great. But if it meant not having this podcast, if we were able to reach out to him and that he'd still be here, I'd happily trade that in a heartbeat because he was a solid fucking dude. So, as you mentioned earlier, just remember that we're not designed to be by ourselves. We're social creatures. Okay. So reach out to people, seek out help in a time of need. That can come from anywhere. It can be a loved one, it can be a family member. A lot of times, my younger brother and I, we call each other and talk about some shit that's going on right here. I got guys that I was in the military with 20 years ago. We still talk and bullshit and check up on each other. It's what you should do, right? It could be a coworker, it could be somebody that you trust with stuff. And that's all great. If you have those support circles, that's fantastic. But if you don't, what do you do? Well, there are options out there. Like we mentioned earlier, there's a national there. Okay, let me back up. If you ever feel like you have no way out and you're going to harm yourself, stop, assess what's going on, and take stock on what you have. If you need to reach somebody, there's a National Suicide Prevention Hotline. You have two ways to get a hold of them. You can dial 1-800-273-8255. Again, 1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-TALK, Tango, Alpha, Lima, Kilo. All right, 1-800-273-TALK. You can also dial 988. Again, that's 988. Either one of those options, you want to get on there and press 1 to talk to somebody in the moment. It's live. They have somebody there to help you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to help you through whatever you're going through and just kind of help you keep you here. Okay, so please remember those phone numbers as well. Okay, so if you can remember those 4 things: being tenacious, refuse to surrender, obliterate your obstacles, seek out help in a time of need, you're going to have a pretty good chance of keeping yourself around for a long, long, long time. And that's ultimately what we want. Okay, we're losing too many people to suicide out of our generation of warriors and people that stood up and did what they needed to do at the right time of history. Okay, so we need to look after ourselves. We are our own gatekeepers and oath keepers to look after each other. So let's all help in that. So I'm going to hand it off to Alamo here. He's going to plug all the social media stuff, and then we're going to get out of here. So take it away there, Gay.
Roger that, Gay. If you want to catch us on social media, there are multiple places you can do that. First of which is facebook.com/battlebros.podcast. Next, you can also catch us over on the Instagram at battlebros_podcast. And you can also catch us on the X, formerly known as Twitter, at BattleBrosPC. On each one of those platforms, you can write us on the messaging service or the instant messaging service that they offer, to go ahead and write us comments, complaints, shows ideas, all that good stuff. We want to hear what you guys have to say. And even if it's negative, we don't care, as long as it's something. We have also a private email that you can actually message us at, which is battlebrospc@gmail.com. That is battlebrospc@gmail.com. And you'll be able to send a email to us privately, as some like to say. And
some folks across the pond.
You can email us there, and once again, message us with show ideas, complaints, comments, whatever. Or hey, even if it's hey, you guys may not think it, but you guys helped us, helped me or my cousin, brother, sister, whatever. It'd be nice to hear that we're making some kind of a difference by getting on this show and saying, like, just talking about stuff that that we care about.
I listened to the show originally because I thought the guy with the big head was funny looking and scared children. The other guy was suave and debonair. And funny. But then I heard the message, and it was kind of cool. And it may not apply to me, but I know somebody it could apply to.
Yep.
I had my daughter ask me a while back.
Exactly.
She's like, "How many followers do you have?" And I'm like, "I have no way of knowing that. I mean, I'm sure I could look it up, but he's the tech guy that answers all those kind of questions." At the same time, I told her, I said, "Sweetie, that's not a metric I'm really worried about. It's how many people are we saving? Are we stopping from going down that path of no return?" That
Yeah.
to me is what's drastically more important. And if we can, do something about that, like, hey, let's fucking do it. So, not to cut you off there, guy.
Heck yeah. Do what you got to do, Mike. Um, Also, if you like catching us on platforms other than YouTube, which is what we're here live on right now, we are on Rumble. If you go to rumble.com and search Battle Bros, all one word, that is rumble.com. Search in the search bar Battle Bros, all one word. You'll find every episode that we have been able to upload on there, minus obviously the last few. Um, I will be working on that though very shortly. Um, you can also catch us on all of the most popular audio platforms that you listen to your podcasts: Spotify, um, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Stitcher, all the most popular ones. If you search our podcast, Battle Bros Podcast, on either one of these platforms, you'll be able to find us and share, or excuse me, follow and listen to us at your leisure, whenever and wherever you want. I got nothing else. I'm not
Okay.
gonna lie, I'm dog tired.
Yeah, we both are. So on that note, thank you everybody for stopping by to give our show a look and or listen. Um, we really appreciate it. We cannot do this without your support. So thank you for supporting us directly, indirectly, overtly, or covertly. We appreciate it. There's really not much else to say other than just thank you for being part of this journey with us. We greatly appreciate it. And we will, hopefully, without any type of delay or issue, we will see you next week, which will be May 23rd, for the season 5 finale of the Battle Bros podcast, episode 110. Crazy to
Yep.
think we're doing that many.
It's crazy
It's
as hell.
going to be kind of a slightly different approach, but it's going to kind of have to do with the whole mental health awareness for the month of May. So stay tuned for that. But again, thank you so much for stopping by. And just remember, like always, be tenacious, refuse to surrender, obliterate your obstacles, seek out help in a time of need. If you can do those 4 things, you've got a pretty good chance of making it through the darkness. So until then,
Yee.
this is Mac and Alamo of the Battle Bros podcast. We will see you down the road. Thank you so much and take care.
Battle Bros out.